Hess, who's running for governor, who I feel aren't liberty questions were big softballs in the air that he just teed off on. I don't even think they were hard for him. So, Barry, take it away.
Thanks, John. I guess I get to go over all the questions with you individually, right? But afterwards, we are going to play Braveheart instead. Folks, I'm here to tell you about some exciting changes here in Arizona that I've seen and I've been a part of for the last 14 years. I've never seen an election cycle like this. It is absolutely amazing. We're seeing people who are reaching outside their parties. They're realizing that party loyalty is family disloyalty. We've got to stand strong, it's true, but it's on principles, it's not parties. And that's really amazing me, because during the primary election, and I was uncontested in my primary, I received almost 200 pictures of other people's ballots who were not in my party. They had the other people's names, whether Fred Duvall or all of the Republicans. They had my name written in, because people are getting it. It doesn't matter if you're going to be on the winning side. It matters how big your pile is. So that the idea, this whole notion of the wasted vote, we've all heard that little nonsensical prayer that went around. Well, the truth is, the only wasted vote is the vote not cast in good conscience. That's the wasted vote. Because if you vote for the lesser evil, all you're doing is taking your vote off of your pile and putting it on someone else's, and they mistake it for support. That's unfortunate. I think that we should all, as individual citizens, and parties aside, because I really don't care much about parties, I think that we should go into the voting booth with the pre-idea that everything we're going to place on every single race is 4 letters. N-O-T-A. None of the above. Then, as we go through our ballots, and I do this every time, as we go through our ballots, if we come to a race where we actually support a candidate, we check them off, of course. We support them. That makes sense. And if everybody did that, we'd see the real support for these characters. They think they've got support because they've got an R or a D behind their name. And that's not true. That's unthinking populations. It so amazes me that the population is getting it. They're understanding. Hey, libertarians wrote the Declaration of Independence. And if you've got a problem with that, then you've got a problem with America. We also authored the Bill of Rights and most of the Constitution. That little 5/8 of a man thing still gets under our skin. We call it the Great Libertarian Compromise, because we didn't want it at all. And like Mel Gibson said in the Patriot movie, why would we trade a tyrant 3,000 miles away for one in our own backyard? There is something to be said that it's all about individual rights and our liberty. And I haven't varied not one bit. I think I can say I'm the only person that I know of in Arizona politics who has not flip-flopped on a single issue. Because I took the right path every time, even when it didn't mean winning an election. But I think it's important that this time, above all times, because of this depression they brought us into, and I don't care, you can call it a recession if you want, but they both mean the same thing. Let's get real. We're losing. We've lost most of our manufacturing base. We've got to bring it back. We've lost most of our faith in government, and we've got to bring it back. But we've got to make government so doggone small, I'd like to see if we could put it in a shoebox, but I don't get my way, and I do understand and appreciate that. We do have to work with other people. And what we have seen in our legislature and what's holding Arizona up from being a positive state is something called gridlock. We get Republicans who won't sign on to a Democrat bill. We get Democrats who won't sign on to a Republican bill. And aren't you just a little bit suspicious when it's a 50-50 split? Come on now. That's not how life is. They're playing games. They want you to think they're the only ones in the game, and they're not. And they're seeing it. They tried to bump libertarians off the ballot with a bill called HB 2305. And that was kind of interesting because I had already decided I was not going to run for governor this time around. I was going to leave it to someone else. But when HB 2305 came up, it was so egregious, it was an attempt that most people don't even know about. And here's what happened. In the middle of the night before the close of a special session, The 16 Republican leaders voted for this bill. This bill was innocuous. It was 3 pages. I actually supported it. Until they added on 4 amendments that turned it into the most egregious attempt to control our electoral process that you could even possibly imagine. It gave almost complete control, and it guaranteed there would only be a Democrat and a Republican on the ballot. I talked to Eddie Farnsworth, who has generally been pretty stalwart, but on this, his ethics were crumbling like anything you can imagine. And I called him up and I said, Eddie, what's with this nonsense? It first lost, by the way. Then they got a call from Karl Rove and a guy named Nathan Sprout, his protege from Washington, and they said, you will add those amendments and you'll push it through again. And they got something called a reconsideration vote. That was after the final vote. Figure that one out. But in those 2 hours, one of the legislators, a guy named Mesnard, who turned out to be a nice enough guy, he just idiot. That's all. But when he said, we've got to get those libertarians off the ballot, they're spoiling our races. They think they own your votes, folks. It was obvious, and it did go through 16 to 13 on the second time through. And that's when I called Eddie, and he said, what are you doing? Just trying to call me up to make me mad? And I said, nah, I wouldn't bother, but I just want to hear you try to defend the indefensible. And he again spouted like 5 races where he believes that libertarians cost a race and gave us Kirsten Sinema and Kirkpatrick and got rid of Joe or Russell and a bunch of other stuff. And these guys, I know all of them, and I'm friends with all of them. I know when Russell called me up and asked me to help him with the libertarians in his district, he said, Barry, you got to help me. We've been friends for 12 years. And I said, Russell, I told you 12 years ago, if you ever confuse my friendships with my politics, it's going to be a fatal mistake on your part. And it was. But I did say, out of deference to our personal friendship, I did decline the offer to lead the effort. He hung up the phone, and that is the last time I spoke with Russell. But it's interesting because they think they can play this old boys club, and I didn't come here to make friends. I came here to protect the next generation. And the only legacy of any value that we might leave them, and that is their individual liberty, period. They don't get it. They want to play this game. I don't play the games. This is not easy. It's not easy traipsing all over the state, spending all, and my money mostly, to go out and get the message across. And it works though, folks. I can tell you, my vote cost has never gone above 5.6 cents a vote. Let's put it in perspective. The nearest who has ever run against me, ever, was a guy named Matt Salmon. Nice fellow, good family. His vote cost was $4.80 a vote. And he was only superseded by a Democrat called Janet Napolitano, who spent $5.60 to get each and every vote. Our message of liberty sells, and it sells easy. We just have to get our voices out there. And I've been disappointed many times by leaders of different groups who say, Barry, I'm voting for you, but I can't tell my group because I'm a precinct committee man, and blah, 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 blah. Whiny baby stuff. You either stand up for your rights or you don't. Because I've endorsed people, I've endorsed several Republicans in the past, I would have endorsed, if there was a good one, someone from the other party. But the truth is, I came from the Republican Party. I worked for a man who looked at me as kind of a grandfatherly figure, and I knew him to never say a bad word about anybody. He was a very nice man and a well-thought man, and I appreciated that. And working on his campaign in 1979, when I was in law school, after a discussion that we had, he said, Barry, you're not a Republican. My jaw hit the ground. I said, of course I am. I'm from New Hampshire. You had dinner with my dad a couple of weeks ago. And he said, no, you're a libertarian. I thought the man was calling me names. I had just graduated from one of the top universities in the country with poli-sci behind me, and I never heard the word before. And he saw the look on my face, which was obviously bewildered. And he needed to explain. And he said, Barry, you don't back up on principle, not one iota. I like the word iota. But what I really liked was when he explained it. He said, because you hold government to the same standard of moral accountability that you would any individual. And to this day, I'd say, and the problem is what? because there are no group rights in America. There are only individual rights. So that what's been happening here on the campaign trail has been very, very revealing. And Ken Bennett, incidentally, if they wanted to have the best candidate, he was the best candidate because he agreed with me. We are going to eliminate all forms of income tax. I don't care, federal, state, all of it, because not only, as James had mentioned, they are illegal, they're immoral. Theft is still theft, even by government, even if they come with a gun, even if they say it's for the children. Never is. Theft is theft. Ask a 3-year-old. That's where you get the honest answers. And I want to eliminate the property tax. See, what keeps America down is us looking over our shoulder, because every single person who files an income tax is cheating on them. Or they can accuse you of cheating on them. In some way, come on now, everybody knows a little bit guilty or feel guilty, and that's why. That's what keeps us down. What many people don't understand, in my study, my specialty was something called the KGB. Probably heard of it, a man named Vladimir Putin, one of the most ruthless individuals ever to walk the face of the earth. And his only counterpart was equally evil, let me assure you, a man named George Bush. These people, the CIA, they played this little game, and I studied them. I begged Reagan, don't make that man your vice president. There's something fundamentally wrong with him. And I was right. And my job, incidentally, was hiding George Jr. from the press. He was Billy Carter, for those of us who understand what that's all about. He was an embarrassment. But it's all part of a movement. They want to keep their empires going, and they do. And we're here to disrupt it. We've done it, what we did here, incidentally, on that 2305, when I said we're going to send it to referendum, and he laughed at me. And he had every right to, because there's been over 30 attempts in over 30 years, and not even one of them has been successful. But I called my good friends Richard Mack and Karen Johnson. I also called the Greens and the Democrats and the League of Women Voters and Clint Bullock over at the Goldwater Institute. 39 major groups in all, and we all agreed what was happening, that this was egregious. When they saw what we had pulled together, the largest, most diverse coalition in Arizona history, they didn't stop. No, they tried to buy back our petitions at twice the price. It cost them about $500,000 of your dollars if you contributed. They realized they were up against something that was so much bigger than them that suddenly they were in real deep. And some of them, Michelle Reagan, for instance, tried to defend it, still tries to defend the indefensible, lack of integrity. Well, what happened was, it got so bad they tried to bribe me out of that coalition. Guy named Bob Thorpe. I don't mind naming names, by the way. Called me down to his office. I took the chairman of our party, the Libertarian Party, down with me. I said, we're going to have some fun today, and here's how it's going to unfold. And sure enough, it did. He wanted to bribe me off of my coalition. That was fun. He says, well, Gary, here, we might repeal the part that applies to those libertarians. We might give that to you. And I said, Jim, I don't want you to give me anything. I'd rather take it from you. And I knew that phrase was going to come back, and so far I've heard it a total of 8 times from other legislators, so he has quoted me. And it was fun. We basically told him to bite my butt and pray for a lockjaw. We're out of here. And they didn't stop there. Oh no, it went on. There was a lot of sleazy stuff that went on. And they kept bugging me to tell me where we were with our signatures every day. And I lied to them. Okay, I lied. Well, I sandbagged. I didn't exactly tell them the whole truth. And so it was funny, because when it became so totally apparent we were going to send this thing to the ballot, they got scared. They got really, really scared. And that's it, because they saw what was going to happen. It was going to go to the ballot, and you, the voters, were going to see their lack of integrity and their lack of ethics on display, and you were going to get to vote on this thing they said was such a good bill. Well, you know what these little pansy politicians did, right? They repealed the laws that we want to repeal, and that's nice, but they didn't do it for you. They did it for them so that it wouldn't appear on the ballot. And you should keep that in mind. Find out who supported 2305, and if you vote for them, you're voting for someone who will compromise principles and their ethics and their personal integrity. And liberty goes far beyond political parties. That's what I'm here to say. I've got the most amazing place to be, incidentally. Here I am a libertarian, and the people who don't understand it, they say, well, you libertarians are for open borders. And they make this big deal about the border. I have the only plan that will absolutely shut down the border to all illegal crossing, period, point, paragraph, and I can prove it because the system has been in place for over 50 years without any penetration whatsoever. A place called Groom Lake up in Nevada. That's where they keep Americans out of secrets the government wants to keep from you. It is a totally workable system. It's cheap. We can do it inside of 6 months and be done with this issue once and for all time. Now my motivation is I love individuals. Everybody's an individual in my book. I don't want to stop an honest person from coming to America. No, I want to stop seeing 260 people die in our deserts every year. For me, it's a matter of conscience. For the other guys, it's just a matter of inconvenience. I think that we've got to have some sensible policies. Somebody's got to break the tie. And this time we can do it. We absolutely can do it. I can see it, I feel it at every single event, and I can feel it in the harshness of the special interests who don't like me when I say nobody gets nothing special. Not you, not anybody else. Well, everybody wants something. I'm the guy who will promise you nothing. At the same time, I do want to see something that we can use. They want to build a whole bunch of roads and this corridor and all this nonsense. We don't need roads, we need transportation. That's what we need. And I've proposed a world-class high-speed monorail that we can put up inside the medians of I-10 and I-17, top to bottom in Arizona, and solar powered. The entire roof will be the largest solar array in history. There'll be little cars that you can rent at every stop where you can go drive a little electric car for $10, go up to Sedona, see what you want to see, and come on back. Another revenue stream for the state where it's a fee for services instead of milking you for money. I think that's important to note because it is a great project. Why do the Chinese and the people in the UAE and Dubai, they're the only ones who get to build these world-class projects? I'm telling you, we'll bring in so many tourists who want to see the beauty of Arizona from 60 feet up at high speed. Tell me that wouldn't be something you'd love. Where you could live in Tucson and work in Flagstaff if you so desire. I think that's a little bit of a vision. And we can do it. And that's about the big one, and we also bring some more water up here. We saw what a crazy guy, right? Muammar Gaddafi. You heard him over in Libya, the one they said was totally crazy. Do you know he built the largest aqueduct system into a desert in the history of mankind? He beat out the Romans. He brought water to the desert. We can do it too. Now their interests don't want us to do that. They want you to be dependent on them for everything you get from your electricity. When I talk to the housing people, the builders, fine, build your houses, but here's the criteria. You want to build every home that overproduces its own electrical uses so that it can go back onto a grid. So if somebody takes out Palo Verde, it won't matter. Right now, you take out Palo Verde, you take out electricity for the Southwest. That is a national security problem. And they can't argue with it. I've talked to the congressmen and the senators, and I've known all these characters for a long time, and they find a reason, and the reason always comes down to my campaign contributors don't like that. Well, I don't care about campaign contributors. Completely free of all those things. We can build an Arizona that will set a standard by eliminating the income tax and the property tax and put that money back into the economy. We'll be out of this depression in a week. And other states around us will be sucked into an economic vortex. They will either get on board or go down the drain. I think we can offer a different way of thinking. It's like Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. That's important to understand. I don't think like them. I don't want to think like them. I do know how they think. And to me, it's a game. I have to admit, I do enjoy making fun of them. Because, why not? They're so easy. I mean, we got to, and the one thing I will agree with James on is the 17th Amendment. I'm all for it, but if you go for a constitutional convention, you're an idiot. Because no matter what you do, you have a constitutional convention. You can open up everything. There is no restriction you can possibly place on a constitutional convention.
Right.
We don't want to give them that chance. I think them old boys in their tight little knickers are pretty smart. They put this thing together after contemplating 5,000 years of human history. We got a pretty good deal. I think that if we're going to hold, like, as libertarians, we believe we're the keepers of a sacred trust between the American people and their government. And what our intention is to do is to hold them to the contract. I think that Constitution means something. And every single turn, we've got to abide by it. So while I speak of these water projects and bringing the high-speed rail to here to Arizona, something to look forward to, a positive future rather than a negative future, I think that my legacy as governor won't be so much about what I've done, and I don't even want it to be. It's going to be more about what I have undone, because we've already been screwed pretty good, folks. We've got to eliminate so many of the laws. I want to make it a rush where our legislators are competing with each other to see how many laws they can take off the books, because we only need a few. Don't steal people's stuff. Don't coerce them. Don't commit fraud, and don't be killing anybody. We all know that's the basics. All the other stuff is just distractions. And they like to distract us. SB 1070, I told them I'm against it. They go, oh, you Mexican lover. Oh, no, I'm a Constitution lover. And what has happened? Right? It's all been erased. All it was about was gathering the list, putting all of your data in one place. And you know they still got that list. And it already has been lost, stolen, and sold by government employees. All of your personal information is already gone. And they're saying, the cry is, well, we've got to protect that list. And I'm saying, no, don't tell me about sophisticated. Anything you can come up with to protect it, they can undo. Here's my solution. Get rid of the list. That makes more sense to me. I'm a simple guy. And I hope that other people are simple too, because it really takes us thinking more of our families than we do of our political affiliations or any of the nonsense. Because I will be the first one to tell you, the libertarian philosophy that founded this country is a separate animal from the Libertarian Party founded in 1971. It's a different animal. For me, it's a vehicle. That's all it is. And we don't even pay attention to our national party. I know them all. I get to speak at all the big stuff. And it's fun. But we take care of Arizona. And I think that's the way it should be for all of us, except above and beyond political parties. I like the Liberty Party. I think that's very cool. John's got to get the thing here going on. and that's what it's going to take, is us keeping our eye on the ball. I mean, when you talk about photo cameras and the surveillance, there's just one answer: get rid of it. The Fourth Amendment's very clear. There are no exceptions. The Second Amendment, the NRA won't even rate libertarians. Anybody know why? Because we win. Every single time we make the other guys look like a bunch of pansies. When you get the NRA saying, well, we wouldn't enforce the laws we have now, and libertarians saying uninfringed means uninfringed. Pretty simple stuff. No, it's become a political hack organization. And that's why I've left my lifetime membership long behind. But if you think I left my firearm behind, I got news. Because I'm a nice guy and I don't start anything, but I will finish it. And that's what I always say about the proper libertarian response to an overt threat or an act against us. It is immediately implemented, speedy in its execution, and it is overwhelming in its scope so as to terminate the threat so we can come home. I think that's policy. And then, of course, the guys who are calling us doves because we don't want to start anything, don't want to stick our nose in other people's business, then they're suddenly saying, well, you're just too brutal. Which is it? You want to fix it? We want to get on with our lives because the good Lord only blesses us each with a few minutes. We got to spend them right, not arguing with other people, not making up all this political nonsense, because the truth is, government doesn't even exist. There's a surprise. It's a concept, and we all live by it voluntarily. And so if you see an egregious law that violates what you know, is not something that the government gets to get a ticket for. You went too fast, pay me money. Somehow that makes it all right on the speeding tickets and all this stuff. I believe if you see reckless driving, that's reckless driving. Let's hold people to task. Now they also like to say that we are pro-drug, because we are the first ones to call for an end to this nonsensical war on drugs. This is bizarre. Of course, the people who make those charges, they go, you're a bunch of hippies, just dope-smoking people, and they used to, when I started this, you would not see the word libertarian without an adjective in front of it. Wacky libertarians, those crazy libertarians. And I used to like to slur, and I think I was on TV when somebody said, well, what do you think about them calling you this and that? And I said, I don't care about that stuff. My favorite is that dope-smoking, gun-toting economist. And the minute they saw that we don't care what they say or what they think, the issue went away. When they asked us, I remember they asked Janet Napolitano if she had ever smoked pot. And she said, well, yeah, I did smoke pot once. She was just not telling you about the other 1,000 times, but she said, I smoked pot once, I didn't like it. I was experimenting. And I remember telling John Hook over on 10 or 12, wherever it is, and I said, oh, well, here's my quote, because they wanted a quote. I said, I didn't know I was running against one of the Kennedys, they experiment, everybody else is an addict. But I said, well, if Janet Napolitano was an experimenter, I was a researcher. And it killed the argument, because it's a stupid argument. I don't care if you want to sit home and get stoned all day long, none of my business. I'm not for medical marijuana. I'm for you having the absolute right to determine whatever you do to or put into your body. And the difference is, the minute you give the government control over what you can't put into your body, by inference, they can tell you what you have to put into your body. Force vaccinations. We've got Gardasil. People died from Gardasil, the young ladies, to prevent cervical cancer, at 4 times the rate that they did from cervical cancer. Somebody's making money, and that's all it's about. I believe it should be people's choices. And I tell the college kids, you want to sit home and get stoned all day, I'll give you 1,000 stories of people that I knew who've done that and they've amounted to nothing. I can also give you 1,000 stories of the politicians and law professors and doctors and everybody of every profession I've ever gotten high with when I was back in the drug culture. Even in law school, it was no big thing. And look what they've done. The last 4 presidents have at least fessed up, and the rest of them are lying. I mean, it's just amazing to me. It's an issue, it's a cultural issue. Now, I do tell the kids, you want to sit home and get stoned all day, none of my business, but you put yourself out into the public thoroughfare and elevate the risk to those that I am in charge of making sure there's public safety. I become your worst nightmare. The kids get it. Many of the adults don't. They believe that some of these adults think that if you're not under control, you are out of control. I don't believe that at all. I have faith in you. And that's the difference between a libertarian and every other political stripe there is. We believe in the inherent goodness in each individual. And I hope you'll take that to heart. Thank you very much. I'm sure I will.
Thank you very much, Barry. Thank you very much, Jim. And thank you, everybody, for coming. And the night's not over. It's social hour right now. But remember, next month, first Tuesday of the month, we're doing Liberty Trivia. So if you think you know rock